Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about one of the craziest January 6th trials yet. Really, maybe top three. All right, so generally speaking, we've had these very routine, almost trespassing plus, people have gotten very little time, and these very complicated seditious conspiracy, oath keepers, and Proud Boys, etc. But we've got a bunch of crazies and the crazies, uber crazies, and uber crazies on steroids who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. And this week on Thursday, we got one of the uber crazies on steroids who is going on trial. His name is Alan Hostetter. He's described as a former police chief turned yoga instructor. And he wants to be his own lawyer, and his defense, the whole thing was a big plot cooked up by the federal authorities. So he is going to first he asked to call Nancy Pelosi and her daughter, a whole list of 30 people. You know, this is what happens when people insist on representing themselves. It's almost always a terrible idea, but they have certain rights, and judges have to be a little careful not to tamp them down, even if what they're doing is A, crazy, and B, almost destined to lose, because they don't want to have it reversed on appeal. So a little bit about Hostetter. So he's going to defend his case by saying that the 2020, the first point number one, he's got three fundamental pillars, he's told the court. First, the 2020 election was rigged. It was all, so the big lie, 100% embraced. And and then lie number two, this is almost a sort of syllogism of lies. I don't think he's thinking of it this way, is that the rioters, didn't come to disrupt any of the proceedings or January 6th. They were just gathering, out of curiosity, perhaps, although he was, from the time the election ended, he was totally a violent provocateur, calling on social media. I think we may need to have an execution or three, is how he cutely put it. And so three, ergo res ipsa loquitur, ergo sum, whatever Latin he'll say as his own lawyer. That must mean the federal government did it. And so he also wanted to call his the manager at the Kimpton Hotel where he stayed, because that person obviously will know that the FBI, camped out there in order to surveil him, etc. So it's going to be a circus atmosphere, and the prosecution has said, look, none of this has anything to do with the facts, and it isn't grounded. It puts me in mind of one of the risks that the United States has been running all along, including in the seditious conspiracy trials, which largely went off very well. But I've referred to the sort of checkered past of these proceedings, because they typically involve crazy people. And in the past, the strategy has worked successfully. I, for the 8th time, commend to you Rachel Maddow's Tour de Force Ultra, where they just had crazy, stunt after crazy stunt, to the point where the trial took forever. And in a couple instances, after the judge died and such, the United States just threw in the towel. I'm sure they were bound and determined not to do it here. And that's largely a matter of really trying to get the judge to keep discipline. But it's a big wild card when you have a crazy conspiracy theorist representing himself. And that's what we're going to have on Thursday. Don't know now what witnesses he will call. because he did back away when the judge, Royce Lambert, said, you can't call the Speaker of the House, you can't call these different people, but he's still bound and determined to represent himself. Unfortunately for him, one of the people that he went to Washington with has agreed to plead guilty and testify against him, and his goose, I think, is pretty well cooked. But we'll see first a kind of the stress test applied to the justice system, and then second, hopefully a really vivid depiction of, because the big lie abides, including at the level of certain members of Congress and the public. And it's really, I think, just as some of the still pictures of the guy with the horns, etc., bring home, we're really talking about some crazy and violent, dangerous people. Perhaps this sort of circus proceedings that Hostetter is going to force the court and the trial to actually undergo will bring home what the U.S. has been dealing with the whole time, and why it was really serious. Even there are probably some reasonable people who have thought, yeah, they're just kind of extremists blowing off steam, but it was always sort of more than that. All right, you may be wondering, what about why can't he call Nancy Pelosi, or could he call Trump to the stand to testify that he called them out, etc.? And the basic rule, which when you represent yourself, judges will give a little bit of extra room on, is you have to have some evidentiary grounding. You have to have some real proof, not beyond a reasonable doubt, but you really got to say, this is what happened. It really mattered. You can't be doing it as a stunt, and you can't be doing it no matter what you think, however deluded you may be. A judge will say, no, look, you've got to have real grounding. If you have proof that Nancy Pelosi, called you personally the day before and said you're, scum and don't come forward, Nancy Pelosi will wind up taking the stand. But if it's just you, as it almost always is, crazily saying, I heard these vibrations from the leader of the free world to come out, etc., or the manager of the Kimpton Hotel must have some knowledge that the FBI was surveilling me, the judge will say you can't do that, and the judge will be affirmed on appeal. The Court of Appeals knows these are pains in the butt, these cases. Certainly don't want to reverse it and kind of pull the rug out from under the district court judges. But we're talking about liberty and criminal charges, and someone who wants to represent himself or herself, they get special leeway. And we'll see, I think, this week that leeway will be used here to air completely fabricated and maybe even psychotic type charges that will go exactly nowhere with the jury. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.